Before we start, how did you come to write your book? What made you decide to write it, and what was the process of actually putting it all together?
Yeah, I used to work for a company called the Digital Property Group, and it's the company that runs Prime Location, Find a Property in Globrix. And halfway through my time there, they said, Chris, you have a Twitter account, you blog a little bit, you must know lots about social media. Can you help us review and revise and create a social media strategy for us? And I had to admit that I don't know that much about social. This was 2 years ago. I said I didn't know that much about social media, but I wanted to rise to the challenge. So I started doing a lot of research, running around looking for books and reading up on blogs to really find out what's the best practice in this space right now. And the problem that I kind of kept coming across is that a lot of the stuff was too elementary. It was too theoretical. It was about how social media is going to change your business or how you create a Twitter account. Things that I kind of already knew, or things that I couldn't really apply or use in my business, or that wouldn't translate well into a strategy as such. So I realized there's a gap in the market, of something, a resource targeting professionals that kind of know social media, people that get that social media is big and it's growing, and we don't need to be told that again, but we want to build on what we currently are doing. How do we take it to the next level? So that's really the starting point of where I identified the need for something to provide professionals like myself in that situation to kind of move forward, really. So.
And you've got a lot of input from other people as well. I mean, it's all other people apart from the end and stuff, but how did that come about? Because that must have been quite difficult to manage with, a lot of those people are, it's a global enterprise, as it were.
Because, another thing that I came across, having reviewed so much social media literature, one of the things that annoyed me a lot was that a lot of books are written by North Americans. No offense to North America, it's a great place to go to on holiday, etc., and a great place to work, etc. But it kind of skewed the view of the world that, obviously living in Europe, working for a British company, there were other references and other examples and case studies that I think would be more relevant for me. So I wanted to kind of bring social media over to Europe as such. And another thing that annoyed me was a lot of them were written by one or two people kind of claiming to be social media experts. And I am no social media expert. And in the same sense that I didn't want to create another book that pretended to be from one person, one person that knows everything, and addressing the fact that there was a lot of North American focus, I decided to use collaborators, have people contribute chapters to the book to bring that European perspective back, to recognize that there's not one person that can sit on everything, but in fact we all have different points of view. And bringing that together would be far more interesting from a reader's point of view than, again, repeating what I saw failing elsewhere. So that's really kind of the reason behind it.
How did you decide what topics that each person, each contributor was going to be writing about? And was it a case of them suggesting the topic, or was it a case of you sort of discussing what topics that you wanted to cover and then sort of allocating them out?
So how it happened, I approached one of my contacts and I said, Eb, you are really good at social media, you know what you're talking about, you're very pragmatic. If I did a project like this, would you consider to be a part of it? And he said yes straight away. He thought it was a brilliant concept. And I said, who else would you like to see collaborating on this book? Who do you turn for to serve? Who do you turn to for inspiration, or for who do you learn from, basically? And he kind of gave me some names, and I approached them and I said the same thing as I said to him, would you like to work on this project? Some people said yes, and those that said yes, I asked them to refer their best contacts. And that's kind of quite organically how the group of collaborators came together. And I said to all of them, what are the areas that interests you the most? This is the audience, this is the age bracket, this is the educational background, this is what they do for a living, and they all want to take it to the next stage. They all get social media, they want to progress this now. And I said, on the basis of that, and you being a recognized professional in your space, what would you be most comfortable talking about? And they proposed suggestions, and as I got these headlines together, I sort of started mixing and matching and to see which ones would fit the best together, and kind of created the outline out of that.
Looking at the contributors of the book, many of them have a very strong PR background. How does PR and social media work together? In other words, how does it both overlap and how is it different?
Yeah, I think the PR industry is sort of doesn't really know what to do with social media. Traditionally, social media has been owned by the marketing department, and because it's a conversation with consumers, PR agencies say that they should be involved because in the same way they help you get covered on national newspapers. We can help you get coverage or get your message amplified through social channels. So that's sort of the pitch that PR companies did in the beginning, especially, that this is just another channel of PR. And then you had specialized social media agencies popping up, which was sort of challenging PR companies, saying you're working with a PR company that's good at getting you coverage in a national printed newspaper or in a national TV station or something, but they are not digital natives. They don't get this new media. They don't understand the audience that operate in this space or exist in this space. You should therefore trust us. So because social media was considered to be a side or a separated, isolated type of activity, it was quite easy for marketing people to say, you know what, we're going to hire this social media agencies to do our PR in social media channels. So the challenge that PR companies now have been facing for a while is that how do they create a credible social media proposition within the PR context? Because they still argue that they are the best people suited to manage the conversation with the audience. That's what they've been doing for decades. That's what they will continue doing. And social media is just a new flavor, I suppose. So some agencies have decided to acquire an existing digital business, a digital agency, a PR agency. Some companies have decided to take a couple of their employees and put them in a separate part of the office and call that the social media task force or whatever, the kind of knowledge expert hub or something. And others have kind of given them a brand name, tried to launch them as a separate business still within the PR company's walls. So I think that's the challenge. How do you, as a traditional PR company, convince your customers that you are suitable to communicate with this new audience or with these new channels? And how do you, as a PR company, decide, do you buy another existing social media PR company? Do you create something internally? Do you keep your brand, or do you give it a brand new identity to kind of separate out and make it clear in the minds of the customers that this is actually a separated part of our company and they have a special skill set and therefore you can trust them. You don't have to go to this external company. So I think that's the main challenges.
It's clear that when I've spoke to companies, that often they work in silos. You know, you've got marketing here and you've got PR there and you've got finance and then you've got production and so on. What are your thoughts on how that's going to change, how companies should now integrate all these functions in terms of social media activity? What sort of steps should companies take in changing the way they work?
So kind of going back a little bit to your previous question, you know, what are the problems that PR companies facing? Yeah, they've been managing conversations for the company for a long period of time, but social media is not just about managing conversations. Social media is a way of interacting with our staff, interacting with our clients, our suppliers. It's a way of empowering our consumers. It's about reviews, it's about communities, it's about the processes you talk about. And realistically, can a PR company do all of that? Can we outsource a component to one company, or do we need to, as a business, recognize that social media is just something that needs to go across the business? And yeah, how do you address that? I think, looking from a company point of view anyways, I mean, a lot of my clients and a lot of the people that I work with are marketing people, and I speak at marketing conferences, etc. And what I tell them is that although social media has traditionally been owned by marketing, that can't remain to be the case going forward. You as a marketing person needs to empower the rest of your business to get behind this. So rather than trying to think of it as losing power or losing that ownership, think of it as empowering your business and being a thought leader and being the ambassador and an enabler of social media, as opposed to someone guarding or trying to protect your interests. So, for example, initiating some sort of center of excellence or some sort of work group that pulls in not just marketing resources headed up by yourself, but also people that represent customer service, people that represent product development or HR even. You know, how can HR leverage social media? And help them to understand about best practices in different verticals and show them how you've been using Twitter so they can see how they can replicate that for their objectives within their business areas. So back to your question, social media definitely needs to filter through the entire organization. Marketing has a good chance to be the people kind of advocating that or enabling that. And then again, what relevance does a PR company have in that big scheme? I'm not so sure. I think PR is good for managing maybe customer relationships, but I don't think they can own and successfully manage that whole integrated, holistic view of social media that I'd like to see companies embracing going forward. So,
as we know, one of the key elements of social media marketing is content. You need really good content. Many companies are quite far down the route. They're doing okay, but a lot of companies and brands are starting out. And how do they approach this aspect of content? How can they create content that's going to attract attention, that's going to engage people? What should they start doing?
Well, I think you need to give your customers something to talk about. I mean, what is valuable that you sit on? What kind of assets do you have within your business in terms of people that work for you maybe, or the products that you provide or services you provide? How can you conversationalize that? How can you turn that into a talking point? I was having a conversation with a friend about Foxtons. Foxtons is a London-based estate agent, and when I looked, this was, to be honest, a while ago, so it's probably changed. Hopefully for their sake, I hope it's changed. They didn't have a very structured approach to social media back in this time. I did a search on Facebook, and you saw more groups created by upset and disappointed customers and prospective tenants than you saw messages from the actual corporation itself. So I think it's looking at that sideline actually. I mean, if you're afraid of engaging with social media because you think people will be backstabbing you or talking your products down, guess what? It's happening anyways already. So you can choose to engage or you can choose to ignore. But personally, it seems to make more sense to engage than to just let this sort of this upset mob of customers have a free reign on social media. So I was talking to a friend about whether or not Foxtons would be suitable for social media, because traditionally estate agents have a very bad reputation. They're loud and noisy, and they talk very fast and they kind of run over you. You always get a bad deal kind of thing. And I think in a survey they've voted the worst, most least appreciated trade in the UK or something. So they have a bad reputation to start with. Can you make Foxtons a good social media proposition? And we said it might be difficult to kind of create a coolness around being an estate agent or engaging with an estate agent as such. But what about the branded cars? So they have a fleet of Mini Coopers branded really funky, and I think every quarter or every 6 months they seem to be changing that branding. So maybe you can't get away with creating a Facebook page about the brand itself, but you might be able to do a Facebook page for the Mini Coopers or for the cars they brand. So kind of trying to think of a different angle to attack this particular topic might be a way to get around, what kind of content should be creating, what should the content be about. Don't talk about the Foxtons itself, how many people you employ, and your sales figures. Talk about the local areas. What's happening in Clapham right now. What are the festivals? What are things affecting property prices? You're trying to turn it into something that's useful and beneficial for the customer. I think is the secret sauce, really.
A lot of information about social media is in the business to consumer, the B2C sector. Same with case studies, but what about B2B, business to business? What should business to business companies be doing to improve their social media presence?
Well, it's funny you'd ask that actually. I was giving a presentation to ADP, which is a company that provides payroll services to large corporations around the globe. And it was a B2B session. It was basically a kickoff for their sales staff. And these are people that are selling a very complicated product, expensive product, to very few and very important clients. And they asked me, how can we leverage social media? We know it's out there, what can we do with it? And our focus of discussion was really around LinkedIn. So I think that's one way of thinking about social media for B2B. Who are your clients? Where do they exist? Is it on Facebook? Is it on Twitter? Or is it, for example, in this case, LinkedIn? And that will probably be the answer for a lot of B2B companies, LinkedIn. And what we talked about is, how do you create a good profile on LinkedIn? How can you tweak it? How do you improve it? What kind of pictures should you have? We talked about groups you can join, how you should interact with those groups, how you should approach potential prospects, how you can leverage LinkedIn for prospecting, etc. When is it okay or not okay to invite people to connect with you, and how should you do it, etc. So there's a lot to be said and explored around that particular space. It's very much a one-to-one kind of basis. ADP wanted to empower the salespeople to do this more efficiently. So the bigger question is, how can we scale this? How can we do this on a more industrial level? And I think a really good example there, I met with Autodesk when I was in San Francisco a few months ago. And Autodesk provides very advanced software for engineers and architects to design and draw buildings. And they were struggling with servicing their customers in the customer service center, because they have users all over the world, multiple languages obviously, but they also have very complicated questions, because you can imagine the kind of problems they would stumble across. It's not, you don't just restart your software like maybe we as a consumers can get away with doing when we have problems. And they were struggling to handle the calls efficiently, or the complaints efficiently, or answering the questions efficiently, because they couldn't employ enough intelligent customer sales representatives to match their customer expectations. So they said, you know, we have all these clever users, why don't we connect them with each other? So they opened up the forum that enabled architects from all over the world to connect with other architects and ask the questions on the forum. And what it did is obviously reduced customer service, number of calls coming into customer service. They could reduce staff, so they were saving money, and customers were getting help quicker, and they were making, you know, probably 1 or 2 useful connections along the way in terms of networking. So as a company, they were enabling people to be doing the job more efficiently, but also getting some other side benefits out of that. So those are 2 examples of how B2B can work and how it should work. But definitely it's one of those areas that we will spend a lot of time and focus going forward, kind of really nailing how do you scale this, how do you replicate the B2C kind of experience for our B2B environment. Because in the end of the day, we might be a buyer or seller of corporate products in the day, but in the evening, we're going to still be logging on to our personal social channels, and so we have a private life alongside our kind of corporate identity. So I think the gap will not be that tremendous. But
you mentioned the influence that people can have over others. I was reading the other day about shadow networks, which essentially are the people whom you may not be able to connect to online or within your own social media networks. In other words, the people you meet, if you like, in real life, you might not actually communicate to them, communicate with them or discuss stuff with them online. This is an important aspect of customer service, because also if you give someone good customer service, then they're going to go offline and tell all their friends about it. What are your thoughts on how companies can actually specifically improve the way they service customers with regards to social media? What sort of things can they actually do?
Well, I think as a business, you should probably choose the level of engagement that is suitable for your size. I mean, a good example is Best Buy in America. This is an old case study, but they have something called a 12th force, if I don't misremember that, which basically allows every customer service representative or salesperson working in one of the many, so Best Buy is a hi-fi or technology dealership or retailer, I suppose. And they have a lot of knowledgeable people advising customers about what to buy, and, you know, processor speeds or whatever questions people might have about different cameras or phones or whatever. But the problem is you have to go into one of the shops to get that level of customer service. But what would happen normally in a normal day, customer service agents will be kind of walking around the shop, not really serving anyone. So they created this virtual equivalent of this online and called it 12th force, where they invite customers to tweet a question like, which camera is better, this one or that one? And whichever customer service representative or sales clerk is available, is not just standing around not doing anything, will then can jump on that, intercept that question and answer them as if they had been in the actual shop. So I think that works really, really well for them. It's been a case that is featured in a lot of different situations, just to kind of show how you can make your sales staff work more efficiently, how you can give your customers better access, etc. But it's quite a grand initiative, quite a big effort. Obviously, you would have to train everyone, and you would have to kind of justify. So that was quite a large piece of work. At News International, for example, they have a customer service desk that would handle questions or queries regarding the Times, Sunday Times and the Sun. And they have one customer service agent that's specialized on monitoring social media channels and handling questions. They have fewer people engaging in social media channels because it's not been as advertised in terms of customer service. So they can get away with doing it on a very small scale. So whatever seems to be right for your business is obviously where you should try to position it. There are lots of tools out there that enables you as a customer service rep to monitor what's going on. A more recent example was O2 that had a problem in the UK a few months ago with a network outage, so phones didn't operate, so people were moaning and complaining on Twitter. But the way they got response over Twitter was impressive, and people were saying, you know, this is great customer service, etc. So I think, and they were not specially trained as such, they were doing the normal job, they didn't know how to handle a crisis of this magnitude, but they just sort of told it as it were, you know, we don't know what's going on, we'll tell you as soon as we know, etc. So they were engaging on one-to-one with all the customers, and it went down really well. It's a good example of how customer service can work and should work on social media, even in very difficult times like a problem with the network.
Of course, with more people talking to each other online, particularly your customers, there's this whole issue of when something goes wrong. Now, a lot of large brands are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, maybe small complaints and so on, but occasionally, of course, something really serious comes along. What should companies be doing to, if you like, prepare for these problems, to prepare for a crisis? What steps should they be taking? What should they be putting in place?
Yeah, well, I think number one thing is that you have a customer service that's plugged into social media, so they're always monitoring the conversation. That's sort of the number one thing. And then going back to the original question about training, you know, obviously you need to equip and empower your staff to respond, how to respond, you know, what sufficiently, to what point, how far are we allowed to, what kind of benefit, what kind of services can we provide? You know, can we offer refunds? Can we offer compensation? You know, it needs to be clear up front. You know, what are the limits of the customer service agent's sort of abilities to compensate there and then on the spot. I think that needs to be kind of thought out well in advance. And there's no harm in not trying to replicate a scenario like this. You can kind of illustrate almost like a war type scenario where you practice, you know, what if this would happen? What if we would be attacked, or if we would have a problem? So trying to recreate the scenario to kind of see how you would respond and how you would mobilize is another good way, I think, of getting around it. But as always, I think there's always difficult to predict when these things will kind of happen, and so all we can do is be as prepared as we possibly can and then deal with it when it happens. I saw a chart the other day that's talking about the number of social media crises, so the number of crises that are being amplified through social media, and that number is just going up and up. So every year, the chances of your company being a victim or sort of stuck in this sort of web of negative feedback in social space will be more likely to happen. So.
The other side of the coin, of course, is building advocacy and influence. And again, some businesses are sort of starting out the process. What should businesses and brands be doing to, if you like, increase the advocacy and influence that they have in terms of social media? What steps should they take to do that?
I think it's important to understand who is engaging with your brand. You can see who is following you on Twitter, who's liking you on Facebook, for example. And what you can do is you can see who of these people are retweeting our messages, or who are talking about us, who are mentioning us, and what are their relative kind of influence. Do they have 15 followers or 150 followers, etc. And one example, which is a great case study, I think, is it's an American online clothes retailer, and they want fashion bloggers. There's a lot of fashion bloggers out there to write about them, and they didn't know how do we get them to write about us. Well, turns out the fashion bloggers have a problem because they're so small. They don't get access to catwalk shows, or they're not invited to go to big parties or whatever. They don't get to get samples sent home to them, which is the benefit of a big retailer or a big publisher. They get access to sort of the next, I don't know, line of clothes being produced by this certain brand. So what they did is that they sort of recognized those issues and said, hey guys, we're going to fly you to our office in New York, you know, from wherever you're based in the world, and we are going to have you select whatever clothes you wanted to get sent to you but you couldn't get, sent to us instead, because we are much bigger, we're much more important to the supplier. They will comply with our request, and we'll let you wear those clothes and take pictures with that clothes. They have professional photographers joining these people. They had makeup artists, so they gave the bloggers a chance almost to be like a star for a day by giving them the things they so much desired but couldn't get access to. And what happens is you have 50 or 100 people experiencing that for a day or two. They're kind of working in groups, and it's quite an efficient schedule, being then sort of spread back into the world, and from all these different places are talking about this brand retailer, how great they are and how cool they are and what they're doing for us. And I think you start small, you know, identify who are talking about you, what can you do for them, what would get them excited, you know, what can they not do themselves. See if you can, you know, with your relatively larger size, leverage your presence and give them something they couldn't do themselves. I think that's a great case study illustrating how you do that. But yeah, definitely engage with them and, you know, have something deeper than just an online conversation.
And small businesses could do that as well, couldn't they? There's restaurants and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Products. I mean, there's a local, where I live, an Indian restaurant in Covent Garden called The Dish Room, and I mentioned them in a blog post. Great restaurant, by the way. You should check it out. Mentioned them in a blog post, and then they added me on this list. And a couple of months later, they invited me to come and taste the new menu.
Yeah.
So they get a bunch of people that, for one reason or another, loyal customers, bloggers, people that have mentioned them in the past online, to come and try what's coming up. And it was a great way for me to connect with fellow food lovers and neighbors I hadn't met before that had an interest in Indian food. And it was a great way for them to give back to me, because I got a chance to, I got some free food out of it, but also I got to try some new exciting dishes, of which half of it will never see a menu, but I felt privileged for having a chance to try it. So I think that's a very small local business doing something very proactive, and didn't fly people in, they didn't get big corporates to sponsor them with products, etc. Very informal, which was great.
There's so much going on in social media at the moment, and of course in digital marketing generally, that a lot of people want to know what's going to happen next.
What's going to happen is, going forward, as Facebook, because I don't know how you feel, but half of the people that I'm friends with on Facebook are people from university, people that I don't see regularly every day, and they may not share my interests anymore. Maybe I'm doing a sport that they are not doing, or maybe I'm traveling to South America, which they may not be doing, and we may not have that much in common, but we are friends.
Yeah.
So what I see happening is that more communities will be created around verticals. So for example, if you are a committed cyclist, you will join the equivalent of Facebook, but for cyclists, because there you will be having things in common with the people that you're connected with. Or if you're traveling, a community for travelers in a specific location. So I think we'll see more verticalization, if that's even a word, of these social channels. Equivalent, like if Instagram is great for any kind of picture, what about a photo app for, or a community of pictures for one specific area of interest? That could potentially be more of interest. So I think more along those lines. But kind of moving away from the specific software or the brand or the product itself, I think what's happening is that social media will become more integrated with other departments beyond marketing that we talked about in the beginning. So I think that's where we're going to see the most sort of innovation in terms of how do you leverage social media for product development. Let's say you have a newspaper, or you have a car. A great example is Barclaycard in America. They created the world's first socially created credit card. I mean, who would think of such a thing as create a credit card using social? Well, they did, and they proved that it worked. And what they did, they invited people that were customers of Barclaycard and say, hey, we're experimenting creating this new product. Are you interested? And they said, yeah. Some people signed up and said yes. And they said, well, this is how the foundation of a credit card. This is how much we need to charge. This is what the interest would look like. And the community could then have input in whether they thought the interest rate was too high or the annual fee was too low or whatever, considering the benefits they were getting for the card. So they kind of socially curated and created kind of the terms and conditions of the card. And not only that, when the card was launched, they could see how many have signed up to this card. They could see what's the outstanding debt that Barclaycard is exposed to. So they could then understand the risk the company is taking, and they could talk about whether or not they should be more risk averse or less risk averse. And they could talk about whether the customer service should be in America or if it should be abroad, because that would impact the annual fee. And this is still going really well. I mean, it's early days still, but I mean, that's one way of thinking of how product development could leverage social. And I think we'll see much more of that going forward.
Chris, you and I met in Africa, and I believe it was at the first conference in Lagos on digital marketing. And one of the things that was clear to both of us was that it was a population that they wanted to get on board. They wanted more access to the web and social media and things, if you like, that we take for granted. How do you think that's going to play out globally? What do you think the challenges are? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening in kind of countries where people don't have a fast broadband connection, or maybe not even a PC at home, they're using their mobile phones much more to adopt social media than we are. So you could argue that a social media channel that can think of a way to let people access the services quickly and easily on a mobile phone will stand a better chance. A friend of mine, he went to Brazil and he was surprised by the number of people using Foursquare. More people are using Foursquare in Brazil than in the UK, even per capita. They love the idea of sharing and broadcasting their presence and whereabouts, etc. So the concept of social is sort of global in its nature, and people want to be social, want to share, and want to talk about what they're doing. So that's going to happen everywhere, no matter what. But What the brand will be, that might still yet to be decided, kind of thing, depending on local players offering interesting tools, etc. So yeah, they're catching up fast, and as they get better and better phones, bigger screens, or even mobile connection, etc., broadband connection, etc., Wi-Fi becomes more readily available. They're gonna be all over all these.
We're seeing a device revolution as well, aren't we? We're seeing sort of new devices springing up all the time, and we seem to all be becoming multiple device owners as well, with sort of gadgets everywhere. Talking of the future, when we met, you mentioned to me that you were writing another book. Tell us about that.
It's going to be published this spring, 2013,
okay.
And it's the sequel to the Social Media MBA. If you go on Amazon, you can read the reviews, and one thing that people keep mentioning is how much they like the case studies. I think there are 8 case studies in the book.
Yeah.
So taking that feedback on board, I've created a book with nothing else but case studies, back to back. It's about 20 case studies, and they're telling the story of a company's social media adaptation journey. So from the beginning, how do you create buy-in from the senior leadership team? Why should we spend time and effort and even thinking about social? And second, okay, we need to do a strategy. What should the strategy look like? What components should it contain? And each of these problems are answered with a case study. So for example, Honda Europe, this is how we created buy-in for our social media strategy. Or Barclaycard US, this is how we created a product leveraging social media. Or Eon, how do you manage crises or problems that customers might have, etc. So again, everything that you would possibly think about having to deal with adopting social media will be covered in the book through the lens of different companies.
One thing that immediately springs to mind when you were talking about that is I often get asked, what's the payoff? With all the investment in sort of time and effort into social media, of course a lot of brands and businesses, companies and so on are looking at their return on spend or return on investment. What would you say to those companies? How can they measure it and monitor it, and where does it come from? It's a gnarly topic that gets raised all the time. I'm sure you go to conferences like I do, and you basically get asked this all the time by they're not even cynics, the people that ask you as well. They're very sensible people. So what would you say to someone that says, prove to me that social media actually has a return?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and one we must not be afraid to be confronted with, especially as someone advocating social media, working in marketing or whatever, because people will question why we're hiring a community manager, why we're spending time training people up using social media. Maybe that will distract them from doing the job or whatever. I heard someone else say that another abbreviation, another way of explaining ROI would be return on ignorance. So yeah, so looking at ROI is critical. How we can't justify continued investment unless we have our backs covered in that sense. And I think a good analogy would be looking back in the days when we were buying ads in printed newspaper or TV ads. Even there's some science to whether or not that's been effectful or not. It's still a bit of a guess. Well, the good news with advertising in the digital space is that you don't have to guess on what the return is going to be. And you don't have to guess what the ROI is going to be with social media, because you can track the customer's journeys. Using free tools like Google Analytics, you can see where traffic is coming from. You can put tracking pixels on your checkout pages or whatever it might be to confirm where this person has been prior to visiting your page. And you can see the impact, the direct correlation between traffic on your Facebook page, comments and engagements, and links to your website from bloggers or whatever. So never before has it been easier to track return on investment than today, especially in social, especially in digital. And there are lots of tools available out there. So what I say is that, pick a tool, do some Googling in terms of ROIs or KPIs others are using and the effect they've seen with that. Apply that to your business and see what you're able to track, see what seems to make the most sense for you to use. Because in the end of the day, as CEOs and other senior executives become more aware of the importance of a social presence and being excellent in that sort of space, they will be asking these hard questions. What's the return on investment? More tomorrow than they have ever thought about doing in the past. So all we can do is being proactive about it, seeing what metrics works for us, and start creating a spreadsheet or some sort of report where we can show the relative effort to the return it's creating.
Chris, as ever, it's been great to speak with you, and we must do it again sometime.
Thank you, likewise.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.